Alignment in Shin Megami Tensei is quite the interesting topic. What with the countless videos on the biases of some games and what alignment you pick, and with people identifying with different types of alignments, I'm probably going to annoy some people, but hey, I think this is interesting, so I'll try my best not to. A forewarning though, there will be discussion of politics and history. If that sounds a bit unrelated, I would like to remind you that we are talking about how to recreate the world for what we believe to be the best possible outcome for the people in it. So, in that case, for the basis of this video, I want to lay around a few ground rules. For the purposes of this analysis, these are that there is a bias in the alignment endings for each Shin Megami Tensei game, meaning that it is mostly an objectively better outcome, as objective something like that can be, or is more likely for the player to get. And 2, that these better endings for each game are the following: neutral, chaos, true demon ending, neutral again, and we'll get to that. With these, we will be able to see what these endings try to say about society and how their bias impacts that. Another thing I want to state before, I know, preamble, but this is the introduction, and I have to introduce. Anyway, this video was taken from a lot of criticism I heard from SMT IV Apocalypse's alignments. As a lot of people complained about how 2 alignments had one that was so obviously better than the other one. I understand that in this case it is a bit too blatant, but to that I say, the game's themes are very obviously about how the bonds you share are their own form of godhood. It's cool that you can reject that, but don't expect it to be a real alignment choice outside of a bad ending you can choose. The reason I bring this up is that it is a much easier game to be able to analyze, and is a pretty quick way to demonstrate what we will be doing on these more difficult games to analyze. On that note, let's begin, shall we? Shin Megami Tensei 1. It took only a video, but god, I couldn't wait to be able to talk about you, my beautiful. I fucking love Shin Megami Tensei 1. While I am going to need to be a little bit careful later on with the actual analysis of the alignment, as there will be some history we need to get into, but for now, I just want to gush about this game and characters, man. I'd sell so many of my organs to see a full-on remake with press turns of this game, which is, you know, what I did. Trying to do. For those who are my only issues with it, it holds up so well. The fights are fun, the demons are cool, the dungeons, while there aren't any textures to fully spell out what they're going for, the design and context clues paint a picture of such interesting places that the textures would if they could. The characters, while the law and chaos raps are very obvious to their alignments, especially later on,
go to the church and ask God to forgive you.
They still have their own character, and you can understand why they would be predisposed to their alignments. Anyway, this analysis is going to be a bit hard. The protagonist of Shin Megami Tensei, my personal favorite, is written very obviously, especially in later appearances, to be a sort of blank slate for the player, even going so far as to be called the hero in his appearances for the Apocalypse DLC.
Yes. See you again.
I'll call him Kazuya moving forward, by the way. Despite being less thematic, Kazuya's alignment is harder to pin down. SMT 2's world could be spawned by any of the hero's choices despite being ruled by law. I mean, you could say Chaos Kazuya's new world was usurped by order, Law Kazuya's world was ruled with an iron grip surviving any dissent, or Neutral Kazuya's world had the people choose to worship and be ruled by law, ironically through their free will. This is all intentional, by the way. SMT 1 was supposed to be beyond right or wrong, though with later appearances and contemplation, I'll say Kazuya was the neutral guy. So we'll be going with that. This will be short-ish, as a lot of what I say will tread the same ground as this amazing video by Kid Capes, and I don't want to take away from this amazing video, as you should. Actually, no. You will watch this video. If you are this far in the video, then you will love it, so watch it. I'll wait. Okay, now that you're back from the video, or didn't heed my warning, in which case, though I may not have the power to watch and punish you, know very well that in the case there is a divine being presiding over us, they will not look kindly upon you. Anyway, the story of Shin Megami Tensei 1 draws very obvious parallels to World War II Japan. In the pre-apocalypse world, you are able to interact with two warring entities, which are both very obviously linked to real people. Looking that way, Thorman being law and Goto being chaos can inform which contextually is the better option and what message that may send. As ambiguous the option Kazuya took may be, the general fan consensus shows that people generally also agree the neutral ending being the best option. I mean, I hope that anyone watching this understanding the real life history doesn't need an explanation of why Goto's nationalistic pride and belief in survival of the fittest is not just disgusting, but also flawed. And if you do, gross. But also in the sentiment, law isn't a great ideal either. As bad as the other option is, maybe a quite literal apocalyptic response is not a good idea, or in the real world, the constant threat of one. To be clear, and this may be something that a lot of you are screaming at me about, is that you don't actually recreate the world with these people in particular. They are both somewhat seen as threats no matter the alignment. These two don't survive the apocalypse, for one reason or another according to your alignment. In the end, the people you choose are your friends who are inspired by those people's ideals in some way, which may make it a bit more palatable but will still lead to the exact same world if you choose Goto or Thorman. I think this says something. These ideas that people had in the past don't die there. These ideas will reproduce, seem a bit more palatable, and learning how they happened in the past can inspire us to be able to call out how they're happening in the present. Wow, that got heavy. Hey, isn't Thorman's name fucking stupid? Like, I get that it's probably a reference to Harry S. Truman, but seriously, Thor-Man. And he is Thor in disguise as a man. This game is fucking goofy. And ironically, of how ailments are broken in this game, he's fucking destroyed by electricity. By the way, you may have noticed that there isn't an SMT II section on this video. Well, that's because it's the only game I haven't fully completed. I know, it's kind of slow, but honestly, I can't find a proper version that actually has the music in it. I can't find anywhere online why that is the case. I don't think it would be fair for me to do a whole analysis on it, not having played it, but once I do, hell, I might even stream me playing it. That'll probably be fun for all of y'all. Anyway, moving on to the next section. Shin Megami Tensei III Nocturne. Nocturne is going to be the first real break from the traditional alignment system of law, neutral, and chaos. While some can be very easily analogous, like Chioghi's alignment being very chaos aligned, and Nocturne was actually pretty hard to pin down. Personally, I think the neutral freedom ending is the best, but they are all pretty equal in work taken to achieve, and like canonicity, if that even applies. Along with that, all of these endings are under the pretense that no matter how great of a world you choose, that world will ultimately fall to the constant cycle of creation thanks to Kagutsuchi. That is where the Maniacs edition comes in. A re-release of the game, which adds like double the content, to be honest. Along with that lovely new content, it's an entirely new ending rewarded to you for going through all of that. The true demon ending. This is objectively, again, as close as objective can be, the best ending, which sounds wrong when you realize that it involves you destroying your universe for all eternity. Stick with me here. It is shown and explained very explicitly that this world is subject to constant death and reincarnation for all eternity as long as Kagutsuchi allows it, which is what the Great Will put it here to do. The reincarnation is fitting, and you could maybe say it applies to the worlds of the other SMT games. Not sure if that's canon, but I don't want my fun to be ruined. Keeping this in mind, what other choice do you have? In a very out man from Crisis on Two Earths, because it's the only action one could take that would have any purpose. No matter what you choose, you will be in this cycle forever. All endings from the original game may hold a great world, but that world will fall again and again for all eternity. This honestly reminds me of the Hindu idea of samsara. That life is suffering and that the constant reincarnation that we call our reality is possibly endless torture given our choices. And isn't that fitting? To escape from the samsara that is the vortex world, you have to defeat these fiends. Different embodiments of death, but more specifically, ending. Yeah, a lot of them have death tied to their themes, but Mother Harlot, who I'm pretty sure is based on the Whore of Babylon, the Four Horsemen, and the Trumpeter are all from the Book of Revelation, the biblical end times. Not just fitting because, the world ended, but it is the thing you will constantly meet in samsara being ending. Only once have you bested that ending are you able to prove your might to Lucifer and become the Satan to reach Nirvana. Could this be a bit of a reach? I guess. But reincarnation isn't the name of the series after all, but given the game's themes, Mara's strange appearance possibly meaning that his influence wasn't as strong, allowing Demi-Fiend to reach Nirvana? Yes, I'm analyzing a 20-year-old dick joke, shut up. Honestly, I don't think it's that far-fetched. I mean, Digital Devil Saga was likely being worked on during this, and wears its Hindu themes on its sleeve. In fact, I go so far as to call the game's story a sort of interpretation of some of the beliefs. With that in mind, why don't we move to Shin Megami Tensei IV. As said in the introduction of this video essay, the origins came from me hearing criticisms on Apocalypse's obvious better endings, but honestly, Base 4 was not that far off from how Apocalypse approached it. More nuanced, but yeah, 4's story is very obviously against the entire idea of chaos and law. Fundamentally, you are an outsider coming from one goofy all world to another goofy all world. Picking just one is kind of antithetical, and considering Flynn's interpretation in Apocalypse, yeah. The guy is staunchly about ridding the firmament, the angels, and as an added bonus, the demons too. To get every ending is basically RNG. Based on all of your dialogue options and what quests you take, getting chaos or law is pretty easy though. Just say what you believe to be something in those alignments enough times and you get to enact whatever world you wish for. However, there is no neutral option, meaning you have to flip-flop like crazy. Weirdly enough, I think that actually makes it more likely though. Think about it. A lot of these options are on very hyper-specific scenarios, and while having a framework can help in these scenarios, following actions on your framework that affect lives without consideration of those lives is ultimately dehumanizing, and follows every tenet of the neutral ending. You create a world not for how you see humanity should be ruled by angels or by/as the strongest demons, but ruled by the people truly in total. Once locked in, the neutral ending follows you inspiring hope in the people, literally, to break from their oppressors. Not just angels, I want to be very clear about this. Chaos is just another hierarchy. A hierarchy ruled by strength with the false promise of it being true freedom. Neutral requires true love in the people, to free them, to allow them to rule themselves safely. You are a hero, not a king. Neutral requires to see the disgusting normalcy that the Ursharkai employs that people happily ignore for the comfort it brings, but also understand that people cannot fall to Yuriko's false promises of knowledge that ultimately just turned them into literal demons. Shin Megami Tensei IV says for times of oppression to not accept it, but not to fall for the same tactics of those oppressors, turning into someone else's oppressor. God, I love this game. Oh, also, yeah, Apocalypse does just confirm the neutral ending. Should have probably started with that. Oh well. Shin Megami Tensei V. Here we go again. So, just like Nocturne, 5's original release was severely lacking in its endings. That is with the knowledge that, just like Nocturne, you have to always keep in mind that no matter what ending you choose, it is always going to be in a vacuum. And that vacuum being the fact that you will be stuck in this cycle forever and ever. The world will come to an end no matter what you choose, and the process will be repeated all over again. That's where Vengeance comes in. In the Path of Vengeance, which... Actually, I don't usually do this because you're on a video about SMT story choices, but seeing as how this release is semi-recent, I don't want to spoil it. Seriously, play the game. It is generally the best release from Atlas since SMT IV. I'm not even kidding. We good? Okay. So, you are given two options based on your actions throughout the game. Yoko's ending and Tao's ending. I hate to step in on a lover's quarrel, but I think Yoko's the right one in this case. Tao's ending would be the absolute best ending in the original SMT V. Everything is perfect, seriously, but that doesn't change the fact that it will end. That a new world will be created and the system will continue no matter what you do. A new world could sprout up right after that's built on nothing but suffering. This is why I think Yoko's ending is the better one. Not only do you end the cycle being the only action one could take that would have any purpose, blah blah blah, you know, but it also, unlike true demon ending, doesn't remove all hope for creation. In Nocturne, it is just a symbolic destruction of the cycle for what it stands for. Nothing more, nothing less. Here, it's all of that, but also a real start. A world not burdened by the cycle and sin of the current one, but a world for freedom. Not that this doesn't have its issues. How different is this compared to the cycle? This world is created by you. Couldn't that lead to its own system of oppression? For this and many reasons, I think that these endings are very equal. While I think the Chaos one is better, Lost still has its own merits. Is living under an unending system truly the worst if people live happily under it, even if it is fleeting? Vengeance is a lot more ambiguous, and I think the bias is definitely going to take a while to set in for people, but seeing these endings honestly makes me very hopeful. They take some of the best ideas from other endings to create something truly special. Hopefully this has taught you something, even if it's just that I have way too much free time, and I will see you on the next one.